She's known around Charleston as the Hat Lady. But in this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, Archie Burkel talks to me about her life in education, her time working for President Jimmy Carter, and how the Hat Ladies came about. Well, you know, Archie, the first time I met you was on the market, and you complimented me on my beautiful smile.
And I still am.
Thank you. I really do appreciate it. And we have known each other since then. But tell me, how are you?
I couldn't be better. I really couldn't. I'm ending 2012 on just such a high note.
Yes, that is awesome. Well, a lot of Charlestonians know you as Archie Burkel. But when I was doing my research, I understand that you went by the name of Barbara Goldsmith.
Yes. The records show. Well, that is my birth name.
Great.
And I did go by the name Barbara for really almost the first 45 years of my life. But during those 45 years, everybody seemed to be named Barbara. And I always wanted a nickname.
Yes.
And I realized that when I was moving away, which I did around that time, I was moving to Atlanta with my husband, I could finally get a nickname, because once you've been calling somebody by name, even after today, if I said, call me Barbara.
Sure.
It's hard. It's hard to do.
It is. It really is.
So I like to say I basically pulled it out of a hat. Pulled Archie out of a hat. But it was a funny story.
Yes.
And it just worked. My husband and I heard somebody called Archie during this time. We were trying to figure out what to name the baby. And we both knew.
Yes.
And it has just been the most fun.
I bet.
The most fun.
I bet. Well, let's walk down memory lane for a minute. I understand that you actually grew up in Chicago.
I did. My roots are in Chicago, although I also have roots in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Which is where my father was raised.
Okay.
He was still born in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of both. I actually traced those Oklahoma roots, and I still have my mother in Chicago and many friends. And I'm very proud to be a Chicagoan, but I am probably, as proud, more.
Yeah.
I love Chicago.
Yes.
I love Charleston.
I bet you do.
So maybe there's something with the CH cities.
Right.
I don't know if there's another one in the world,
Yeah.
but I don't think I'm looking to find any anymore.
Yes. Well, tell me this. When did you know you had a love for hats?
Oh, that is such an easy question. I was about 10 years old, and I was at a girlfriend's house, and we were up in the attic, and we literally opened up a trunk, and there were hats.
Wow.
Yes, wow. And there were some scarves.
Yes.
And somewhere there is a picture of me with a hat on my head, the scarf around my neck, and I am this. And my girlfriend's sister is next.
Yes, yes.
So that is my first vivid recollection of finding and loving hats. But I will tell you that it's apparently in my genes as well.
Yes.
My maternal grandmother was known as the Hat Lady.
Wow.
And on my father's side, his grandfather, the main item he sold in his dry goods store in Oklahoma was hats.
Wow.
But I didn't know that at all.
Really?
I didn't know that at all until a couple of years after starting the Hat Ladies.
Really? And before the success of the Hat Ladies, I understand that you worked in the education field.
You have done your homework.
I did.
I'm the type of person, but I think others are too. They may not realize that they know what they loved long ago. And really around that 10 years old time, I love to give advice.
Yes.
I feel everybody's entitled to my opinion.
Sure.
And while in high school, I worked for my guidance counselor, and I said, that's what I want to be when I grow up. So I had 25 wonderful years as a guidance counselor at a fine school in the Chicago area.
Yes, and an English teacher too, right?
I did, yes. Back then, and probably still, you had to teach English.
Okay.
You had to teach something. So I chose English, and it's amazing how those skills have really made a difference. In fact, I just wrote a book.
Is that right?
I don't know if that's on your list.
Oh, no, talk to me about that.
Well, I'm delighted.
Yes.
Because what it really does is pull together so many of these threads, and again, I think others have these connections in their lives.
Sure.
And sometimes you do need to look backwards to see them. But I wrote a book called The Joy of Hats. And it is a very practical wear it, how to shop for it, how to clean it, how to travel with it. But it's also a little philosophical because, you know, you don't want to ever hang up your hat.
Sure. Oh, yes. Oh,
and
yes.
sometimes you wait too long and should do things at the drop of a hat. But most of all, you should toss your hat in the ring.
I agree. I completely. I agree. Well, let's continue to walk down the education walkway.
Okay.
I understand that you actually attended and graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
I did.
Talk to me about your college years there.
Oh, they were good. They were good. Going to Madison, Wisconsin, living in Chicago, was just enough away. At most, went to the University of Illinois.
Sure.
And what I loved the most about Wisconsin, it had the attraction for students from all over the country.
Sure.
And this was my first awareness of the differences, whether it was expressions or simply experiences growing up.
Sure.
And so my education was not just the books, which again would be for most students, but this was very broadening because I was enough out of my environment.
Sure.
And I am so proud to say that my college sorority sisters and I don't know if I want to tell you how many years later, but we still get together.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. And my friends from grammar school, it's the same thing.
Yes.
So once you're my friend, you stay my friend.
I know.
You better watch out.
I know. I'm happy to be your friend. And, you know, later on you went and got a master's from the school that I wanted to go to, but I got rejected. But it was Northwestern University.
I did. And that was very gratifying because I was able to go right on and get my counseling degree. The English education degree came from Wisconsin.
Sure.
And then I was back home for a little bit.
Yes, that is awesome. That is awesome. And I know that you have a love for volunteering, and you have been volunteering for a couple of years now, in which you actually, from what I read, worked for President Jimmy Carter.
I did. When we moved to Atlanta, it was, we were there for my husband's involvement with the Olympics.
Sure.
But it really was a time to start over, to what I thought reinvent myself. And I think that President Carter, particularly back in those days, the early 90s, you know, he was defeated. He was still, by many definition, a young man.
Yes.
And he wasn't ready to hang up his hat. So he was a role model for having a meaningful next big chapter in his life.
Yes, oh yes.
And of course, he was doing a lot of good. So I was attracted to the Carter Center, and I think even from the standpoint that my political awareness in the 70s, I was the most involved in his election from that time forward.
Oh, yes.
So it was a wonderful experience and very broadening because I had been in the high school setting, and now I was dealing with volunteers who, some were 90 years old. So that too was broadening of the type of people that I'm now working with, volunteering with now.
Yes. Well, let's talk about your time from the Midwest to Atlanta. When you think of Atlanta, what comes to mind?
Oh, Tara. It's just ironic that in Chicago, as a little girl, on my way to day camp, I saw my first white columned house, and it was a wow to me. So that's what I first think of. But you know, there's the sense of history that you don't quite have in Chicago. Chicago is finally 100 years old, having been rebuilt from this crazy cow that caused the fire. So it was a whole new way of life, and yet it was, even in the 90s, it was touted as an evolving city, as one that was really going somewhere, and that was exciting to me too, because I don't like things to be old hat.
Oh yes, I get that. Well, let's talk about how the whole conception of the Hat Ladies came about.
You know, it came about at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
I just walked around Charleston wearing hats. I did it more than I did any other place.
Yes.
In Chicago, we needed hats. They still were stylish.
Oh, yes.
But I wore them mostly for the weather. And in Atlanta, started to feel the southern charm and grace. And I wore them a little more. And I didn't have many.
Okay.
But we moved here, and I think it was just the perfect combination that the weather was beautiful. it's a walkable city.
Oh, yes.
And I could indulge. And just putting a hat on my head and we say a smile on my face.
That's right.
Charleston became a beautiful place, and people talked to me.
Yes.
And the more they talked to me and said, I love your hat, the more I said, there is something I can pull out of them.
Yes. Yes.
But I didn't know what.
Right.
I mean, I never had this master plan or vision. It just was this little snowball that became an avalanche. I've never sold them. I've never decorated them. I've never wanted to make them. I just wanted to wear them, and that has so many messages in and of itself.
Sure. Oh,
because sometimes we say an idea is stupid, and we say, I'm not going to do that. Or somebody else will say to us, that's stupid. Well, I truly have never done anything more meaningful, because I'm bringing people together of all backgrounds, in this broad age spectrum, from 12 to 91, and the same self-esteem that I hoped I would motivate in my students. Well, let me tell you how good we feel putting this hat on our head and getting compliments.
Compliments, that's right. That's right. And from what I read, that you launched it the day before September 11th.
This was amazing. This was, we had been doing some little things in the spring of 2001. And when I say we, strangers. Somebody said, I love your hat. I asked for an email address. The internet was just really getting going. And from these little things, there was a beautiful article that summer. So, excuse me, I said to myself, oh, I got 100 ladies respond to this article in the Post and Courier.
That's right.
So I said to myself, well, I should have a real luncheon. But it was summer, and I thought, well, I'll wait till after Labor Day.
Sure.
I'll give Labor Day a little space.
That's right.
And then I'll make a luncheon. And literally, I picked Monday, September 10th, 2001, out of a hat.
Yes.
And there were about 48 of us. We met at Alhambra Hall. Everybody brought a dish. Nobody knew anybody. I mean, I was still very new to Charleston.
Okay.
And we had a wonderful time. I mean, this bond of loving hats somehow translates into, I'm going to like you. Whatever else, there is to say about you, which is an amazing thing about an organization. We really like each other and like our hats. So we had this wonderful day, and the next day the world fell apart. And I can never forget, about 6 months later, we had our first Easter promenade, which sitting here makes me think promenade.
Right.
And one of the ladies, who was actually originally from New York, as we walked down the street, and people were smiling, and people were waving, and I'm not saying we have crowds as the Easter parade in New York, but it really was like a coming out for everybody. I mean, we're still reeling and healing from 9/11, but that 6-month time period, for sure, was so raw that for us to be able to walk down the street and not feel afraid and see these smiling, friendly faces, it was a milestone for us, and I think to some extent the city and other cities, that life really could go on different, but still with smiles.
That's right.
Good things.
Yes. Well, describe to me the following in one word. Modeling.
Oh, well, I certainly never thought of myself as a model, but I've never had my picture taken so many times in my whole life. When people say, I love your hat, then they tend to say, can I take your picture? And I thought, well, even at this age, maybe I can with these hats, because everybody can wear a hat. That's part of what I was. It's really want to wear what you can. But everybody maybe wants to take a picture or a model in a hat. So I thought maybe there would be a niche
One word to describe education.
You know, I would have to use the word passion because I've been very lucky that everything I have done, I have felt passionate about.
Yes. One word to describe Atlanta.
Oh, wow. Vibrant.
Yes.
Vibrant.
One word to describe Charleston.
Indescribable.
One word to describe Archie Burkel.
I kind of hate to say it because I don't always consider it that much of a... I'm organized.
Yes, you are. You are. You are. Email savvy too. She's good at it. Well, you know, a lot of people know you for your love for hats. But what is something that people don't know about you?
Oh, wow. If I had to pick another word, it would be lucky.
Okay.
I feel I'm lucky.
Yes.
And I feel that I was born into a lucky family. And I know we can get into, you have to make your own luck, things like that. But I'm very grateful. I just feel that way. I feel that my family's been blessed. I've been blessed. And I grew up in a very volunteering family, a very giving family. And so all these things, the concept of paying it forward, I really had some great role models.
That is awesome. When you look into your crystal ball, what do you see in your future?
Well, I'm hoping for another 66 years. How's that? I'm very open. When I use the expression "toss your hat in the ring," that is me. I'd love to be a puppeteer. I mean, there's funny little things that I hope I have time for. I'd like to go back to playing the piano. I'd like more hours in the day.
Yes. Oh, me too. Me too. Well, Archie Burkel, it was so good talking to you.
Likewise, and smiling right back at you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I really do.
Thank you, Quintin.
Thank you.